We have officially closed the door on All-Star games for the 2025 draft cycle, with the Senior Bowl and East-West Shrine game finishing up at the end of last week. Many players helped themselves at practice, and maybe a few teams tuned into the game. Few may be the key term there. So, with All-Star games done, what comes next in the cycle? Stick around today to find out what is on the February landscape for teams across the NFL as Neil and I dive in on that and so much more here on Scouting the League. Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Scouting the League. Back to our regular format and show style, but have to give a huge shout out and thank you to both Neil and Rick, who did yeoman's work on the road between Frisco and Mobile. Our abbreviated episodes hopefully kept you in the know on what was going on in each spot. Before we dive in today, Scouts, be checking your messages, emails, and the Friday wrap from Inside the League for updates on the scouting community. The one-stop destination that is going to help scouts across the league. I have had some tremendous conversations with a number of scouts across multiple teams, and I am excited about where this is heading. From a salary and benefit database to mentorship and development, there are going to be a number of pieces that will help you and give you access if you join the scouting community. Be on the lookout or reach out to me today for more info on the scouting community. Other things to mark on your calendar. Wednesday, February 26, 5:30 p.m. at the Combine, the 2025 Ellison Keebler at Merrill Lynch ITL Combine Seminar. Neil could not choose a shorter name, but we'll get it all in there anyway. That's going to take place. This 16th annual event will be another opportunity to celebrate the best in the scouting business and football community. Neil will hand out the C.O. Braccato Memorial Award for lifetime service to the NFL scouting person who deserves this long-standing NFL scout or executive. Plus, he will honor one of the highly accomplished contract advisors with that Eugene E. Parker Award for lifetime service in the agent industry. Perhaps my favorite part will be to honor the 25 scouts who are voted best in football in 3 categories: Next Wave, Road, and Executive, plus superlative awards in categories Best on a Visit, Best Running a Pro Day, and Best Gathering Background Information. Also, some newer categories that will get awards recognition for that top strength coach and top pro liaison, plus Most Improved School Visit. I don't know if that's a great list to be on, but at least you are improved, so I'm sure they will be happy to take that. Neil will also present the results of the annual salary survey, which will certainly be taken to another level in 2025 and beyond with that scouting community. All in and done in an hour, and maybe the best part, an open bar for all attendees and a reception afterwards. Completely free to attend if you are part of that world. Always a ton of scouts and executives, plus agents and those all over the football world. We expect to see you there, scouts. I'm talking to you, but Neil is not done on Wednesday night. Friday, February 28th at the Combine, 8:30 a.m., the 2025 ITL Symposium, which will mirror the work done in 2023. This year, the focus will be on general managers and personnel directors who make the transfer portal work, along with representatives of NIL agencies in the business. This is going to have no media, no recording devices, 90 minutes of real talk, just as was the case a couple years ago. Cost for this, $100 if you're an individual or $400 for some agency spots. Expecting at least a dozen P4 schools to be in attendance and part of the symposium as well. Agents, agencies, reach out to Neil, get signed up for that today. Lots to do today. Just one more thing before we jump in. Go like, subscribe, share. We need your feedback and your recognition so we can continue to bring the insight from the football world. 5-star reviews. Most importantly, share this with someone you know. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Megaphone, or our home over on Fans First Sports Network, make sure you let us know. If you're watching us over on YouTube, make sure you subscribe over there as well. Neil Stratton at Inside the League on X. InsideTheLeague.com is his website. Back from a long trip back and forth across Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, of course. I have to imagine, Neil, it's good to be home, settling back into a routine, back in the comfy chair there with your drink. How was the road?
It's really bad when you're a budget traveler like I am, Rodrik. I don't have the teams with the big travel budgets and that kind of thing. We stayed in a really bad hotel. I say Rick's Hotel is my travel buddy this January, and I think Rick actually slept in his clothes one night. I mean, that's a pretty bad indication of what you're looking at. It's and we could talk off camera about the hotel, and I don't want to trash anybody out. The location was great, right? They say location.
It's everything.
So, we got all three of those things, but not much more. So, but other than that, no, it's obviously great to be home, sleeping in your own bed, familiar surroundings, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. It is nice. As nice as the road is, sometimes it is always good to be back home. I have experienced that. I am Rodrik David at Right Step ADV on X. RSAFootball.com is my website. Curator of the scouting community. Wishing I was sitting in February meetings right now. But before we talk to meetings, Neil, a lot has happened over the last couple of weeks. Of course, this is the hiring cycle. We already touched on the firing cycle, though one got sprinkled in there. But again, let's do a little cleanup, maybe some reaction on the ground from either Frisco or Mobile. Let's start in Vegas. Again, this is one that's really been widely praised. Pete Carroll, John Spytek. Again, I don't know how to say it. I say it wrong every time, I'm sure. From Tampa. Offensive coordinator Chip Kelly leaves Ohio State after that national title, and they keep defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. Pete Carroll, 73 years old, 73 years young. I hate the saying, but it may be the case for Pete Carroll. This is a culture hire at head coach, is it not? What's the sense been with this Vegas hire?
I mean, taking nothing away from Dan Campbell, everyone loves to talk about what a great job he's done on the culture there. It doesn't matter what kind of culture you have. You got bad players. I mean, I've not been shy about saying that I'm a big fan of what Brad Holmes has done in Detroit. They won Best Draft Award last year for a reason. And, it'll all kind of go, I think, on the success of John Spytek in his drafts. Now you're talking about another person who's behind a Best Draft Award. I think that was in 21. And so he knows what he's doing. I think the hires have been solid. Pete Carroll is a guy who's had a lot of success, but boy, Father Time comes for everyone. I think at some point you have to think maybe he's too old, but so far I think he's a good one to bet on. I really like Patrick Graham as a DC. Chip Kelly's an interesting hire as the OC. He hasn't had the kind of success on the NFL level maybe that where you'd really be excited about the hire, but I don't think it's a negative certainly. And he's certainly doing well at the bank now. But I think ultimately we will know how things turn out based on how the drafts go. And despite the fact that Tom Telesco got let go, he had a very solid draft for the Raiders. They've got something to build on there. The question is now, can they find the quarterback in the draft? Is someone that kind of really helps them take the next step. So I'm excited about if I was a Raiders fan, I would be excited about what's going on. Of course, pending what happens on draft day, but I think there's good reason for optimism there.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you can start you start drawing pencil lines. Again, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, like either of those guys, a lot of people have penciled them in based on what Chip Kelly did round one with the Eagles. Again, and for the lack of maybe team success and sustained success, top five offenses, good football teams. Culture-wise, again, I think a lot of people, that's where you would really knock what Chip Kelly did in Philadelphia was he did not have the building right. He didn't have the locker room right. That became fairly obvious fairly quickly with some of the outspoken players. I don't expect that to be the case with Pete Carroll at the helm. But again, you start thinking long term, is either Chip or Patrick the heir apparent? Again, who knows? Chip's already done it. Maybe he is satisfied being a coordinator. The decision he made leaving UCLA, going to Ohio State, now going to Ohio State to Vegas, wants to be out of the college ranks, wants to settle in as a coordinator. He could have a really long, sustained run in the NFL if he's happy in that role. Again, maybe Patrick Graham is that heir apparent underneath it. And then on the personnel side, again, when you talk about what John did in Tampa, for all the questions and maybe the uncertainty that Tampa's had, it's now been quarterback over the years, changing over, going from head coach to Todd Bowles, Arians to Todd Bowles. Unbelievable stability. Jason Light, huge credit to Jason. The front office, the draft, the way they've run their organization has been really, really successful. Again, one that you probably look at as a model. Again, I am sure the Raiders are hoping for that model with John. So you connect John and Pete. Again, like you said, the optimism should be there. Yes, you have to hit on a quarterback. A lot of different ways to do that. But if everything else is correct, and then you just find that last puzzle piece in the quarterback, which is a big one, again, you are setting yourself up for success.
I mean, listen, Tampa Bay is, as the kids say, low key, one of the better franchises in the NFL, and I don't think they get a lot of credit for that. And I think Todd Bowles is one of the more underrated. What is that? 3 straight division titles,
Yep.
And I don't think they were picked any of the 3
With
years.
no expectations, absolutely.
And so, I think obviously Spytek had a big hand in that, and I think that he is trying to rebuild that in Las Vegas. And with a little luck, I think that can all come together. I think Kelly's the big wild card here because we don't know exactly. Here's a guy who's been a head coach 2 times, wasn't really successful either time, but as a coordinator, probably can. I mean, I would think that he probably can make some things done. I mean, as far as the succession plan, I'm not sure if he's the guy or not, but it's a little too early to talk about a succession plan for a guy that just got hired anyway. So
yeah.
I like the way the Raiders are thinking. I like the way they're going. And again, if I'm a Raiders fan, I'm optimistic about the future.
Yeah. Well, again, Tampa Bay, have to give that shout out to fellow Nebraska Wesleyan University alum Jason Light. Again, he was a football player there. After he was a little better than I was, he started his career at Nebraska, was a Husker. But again, he was, and of course, he was a Plainsman. I was a Prairie Wolf. They changed the mascot. Whole different deal. So let's move on. Again, we talk about Tampa, state of Florida, Jacksonville Jaguars. Talk about an avoidable situation. Talk about a situation where maybe they've finally gotten one part of it right. The full expectation when they went into the offseason was Balky and Peterson were both going to be gone, one or the other. Balky stays. They're losing head coaching candidates left and right. It sounds like Liam Cohen was the guy they wanted. Initially told him no. All of a sudden, Balky's shown the door. And then you get the weird situation. Liam Cohen, is he at a doctor's office? Is he on a plane back to Jacksonville? What was agreed upon? Ultimately, we're here now. Liam Cohen is the new head coach of Jacksonville. Jacksonville still looking for a GM to pair with him. There was news, again, Tony Baselli, longtime, the Jaguar, if there is one, maybe among all the guys in there as somewhat of a DFO overseeing things. Owners are involved. What was the sense with Jacksonville, again, as you were at these all-star games and as you're talking to people across the industry?
Well, I question this model that is now kind of becoming vogue of having almost splitting the GM position and having someone over the top. And even though John Elway had a lot of success in Denver, and I take my hat off to him, I think he's a guy that's probably a little underappreciated as a GM. Is this the model now? We find the best player in franchise history, we make him part of the upper management, and then we have this kind of weird who's in charge, who's the boss kind of situation. I mean, I think you could argue that it's worked in Detroit where Chris Spielman's kind of got a quasi-similar role, but has it worked in Tennessee? And I mean, obviously Chad Brinker is not a great former Titan or anything like that, but he's kind of that over-the-top guy who's not in charge of the roster per se. but that one extra layer of authority I think is odd. And my understanding is the GM, the head coach, and Bazzelli will all report to Khan separately, but they all have responsibilities that are going to overlap at least to some degree. So even though they all report to one person, what's the chain of command there? That seems really confusing. And I know collaboration is a great buzzword these days, but it very rarely is that seamless. And we're seeing a lot more of, I guess, muddy waters when it comes to command systems in the league lately. I think we've kind of seen that. There certainly are question marks in New England as well. I just don't know that it's, unless Bozelli's kind of coming in a mostly ceremonial role, then if I'm coming in as GM, I've got a lot of questions. And the name that I keep hearing is Ian Cunningham as a strong candidate in Jacksonville. But Ian's been pretty selective about the jobs that he's interviewed with and the jobs he's taken. I mean, the word is that he's turned jobs down before. And if that's the case, is he going to want to come into Jacksonville, given how, at least to me, confusing that chain of command is going to be? I think you want to come in and kind of control your fate more than that. And it seems like the GM may be the number three guy as far as influence in Jacksonville, and that's a bad place to be when you're first coming in. My estimation, anyway.
Yeah, you said the word collaboration, and again, it's always the question: teams who's got final say of the 53, and again, it becomes an
Absolutely.
issue. Again, it becomes a question of who's got the power. At the end of the day, 99, maybe 999 times out of 1,000, the head coach and the GM should be making the same decision. And again, it's almost you look at each other and it's like, yeah, I know what you're thinking. So there shouldn't be an issue of collaboration. It should be an issue of, hey, we're on the same page. It's hard enough with two people setting a roster when the head coach and GM traditional model reporting to an owner, or even a head coach reporting to GM reporting to owner. Adding that third tripod, adding that third leg that has to be on the same page. Again, it just seems like that another element of, all right, where can things go wrong? Where can things get confused? Where can things get muddied? Where does a third voice, a third opinion slow down the process, muddy the waters, all those kinds of things? Again, from a structure standpoint, doesn't make sense to me. Everybody's kind of trying to tweak and play with it instead of just looking at the way, again, look at the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl, look at their reporting structure. Why not copy what is working? Andy Reid is a different person in Kansas City, but again, a very traditional structure. Again, maybe you put Brett Veach underneath Andy because of what Andy is, but again, it's still a linear reporting model. Again, we're going to try keep throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks, and again, we'll see if it ultimately pays off for Jacksonville. My question for Liam is, how you do one thing is how you do everything. It was a tough Friday for him. Again, doctor's appointments, planes, where was he? What was actually told? And again, in the media, what was actually true? Again, you always wish people success. I wish Liam all the success. I know a lot of people that speak highly of him. Really good offensive mind, did great things with Baker. Again, I hope that there's a bit of a reset there and Jacksonville starts heading in the right direction, because it's good for football when good teams are good. So let's head on back to your home state. Dallas, again, seemed like a funky one. They wait their time. McCarthy's ultimately out. Kind of late to the game on some of these interviews. Don't get a shot with Ben Johnson. Maybe you don't get a shot with Aaron Glenn. Maybe other candidates are, I'm just kind of not there on the Dallas Cowboys. Coach Prime, was he an actual candidate? They ultimately stay in house with Brian Schottenheimer. Absolutely crushed across the football world, media world on day one. Now, give it a couple of days, he's brought in Matt Eberflus, former head coach, well-respected DC. He's put some good people around him. Maybe Dallas is, hey, maybe Jerry does know what he's doing. Maybe Jerry is pulling the right strings. Brian going to get a shot. What's been the sense on Dallas and where they've gone with this head coaching hire?
Here's what I like about the Dallas move. I think there's two things to it. Number one, I like the idea of the continuity. You and I have discussed the value of that. I think it's not talked about enough in the NFL. Dak doesn't have to come in and run to learn a new offense. CD doesn't have to come in and learn a new offense. All those things are positives. Number two, they've got a good, strong DC there that I think can handle things. Now, this wouldn't be the first time they brought in a reputable DC and things didn't really work out. Mike Zimmer didn't turn out to be the greatest hire of all time, and maybe Eberflus will be better. But I think at least they've got someone who's got some head coaching experience that can be a shoulder to cry on for Schottenheimer, for lack of better words. But I think ultimately this is a placeholder to wait and see if Bill doesn't like Chapel Hill. And if things don't work out there, and that, I mean, listen, as good a coach as he is, it is a major culture change there. And we'll have to see how long. I mean, you don't sign a contract, that can mean only one thing to me. And I know that that's been kind of papered over and polished up and all those kind of things. But ultimately, I think that's a sign that he's been kind of on the fence. And I think if things don't work out for Schottenheimer in year one or maybe year two or whatever, and things aren't as rosy perhaps as Belichick thought they were, he's got to have his eye on that record. And I think he's still going to want to pursue that. He's not a young man, but he's not that old yet. I think he's still viable as an NFL head coach. And so I think this kind of threads a needle for everything Jerry Jones is trying to accomplish, at least in the short term. And if it doesn't work, as you and I have discussed, one-year head coaches have kind of become a thing. And so they just go in a different direction after this.
Yeah. Again, the Cowboys, still a good roster, still a lot of good pieces in place in a tough division. Again, it used to be, hey, now you've got to compete with Philly. Well, all of a sudden, Washington, kind of cleaned up there and looks like they are only going to get stronger as Adam Peters and Coach Quinn, continue to bring more and more pieces in there. Yes, and the Eagles are still there. There is no indication that they're not going to be. So again, one of the better divisions across the NFL. And if New York hits on a quarterback or hits on some pieces, again, all of a sudden you've got another situation like the AFC North where it's 4 hard outs and 4 potential playoff teams. So again, interesting to see what happens in Dallas. But again, the settling down of the Jerry has no ideas what he's doing narrative. Glad to see that. Again, Jerry's done a lot of good things for the NFL, for the Cowboys over the years. And again, he probably unfairly in some way, he gets paid a lot of money. He's the owner of a franchise. Anything thrown his way is fair, but maybe unfounded accusations against him that he really doesn't, have the pulse of what he's doing. Again, probably good to see that go away. Neil, we've got to hit on the Saints. It seems like they're waiting on Kellen Moore. It seems like maybe they haven't penciled in. They just need to get through the Super Bowl this week to bring in final interviews, maybe put pen to paper there. Unfortunately, the Saints are also now in the news for things non-football related. I can't imagine you're changing allegiances at this point, but what's going on in New Orleans? Is it, again, they just need to weather the storm of another week to get through this before they get a positive headline?
Probably helps that it's Super Bowl week and the football world will move on rather quickly from this, I would guess. This isn't as big a deal to me as it is to everyone else. I don't think it's such a bad thing to be on the side of faith-based organizations. I know that there's a lot more to it than that before everyone sends me emails or whatever. But generally speaking, I think this is probably something that moved. The news cycle is rather brief on this. I guess time will tell. As far as Kellen Moore, I think it's a bold move, and I applaud Moore for doing it. I'm not sure that it's a bold move for Kellen Moore. It's a bold move for the Saints. And there are so many questions that are yet to be answered with the Saints with regard to what their strategy is going to be in the short term and how they're going to try to fix some things, that it's even, to me, it's hard to even comment on it. I mean, are they going to try to really, well, number one, they're going to keep Carr, and I'm sure Kellen Moore will have some influence on that. Are they going to keep some of the key pieces that are still productive but very expensive and don't have a future in the game per se? There's so many questions there that I think it's really hard to determine all those things. Now, with all that said, it's interesting that the team kind of, Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore seemed to be a marriage made in heaven until Mike McCarthy more or less said, hey, go find another job. And Moore didn't have wild success with the Chargers, but he certainly has calmed things in Philadelphia. And I can remember another head coach that the Saints once hired that didn't necessarily come with a sterling pedigree per se. He had had kind of his bumps and bruises, but certainly learned on the job and turned out to be the right hire. So anything can happen in the NFL. It was not too long ago that we were talking about the Texans as a franchise that was doomed, and it wasn't too long we were talking about the Commanders as franchises that were doomed. If you get that quarterback pick right and make a couple good hires, things can turn around quickly. It'll be harder for the Saints given their cap situation, but it can be done, and I think Moore at least has a chance to do it. I'm seeing a lot of hero worship out there, and kind of anointing of him, and I think that's probably unfounded. But he is a human being just like anyone else. But I think it's probably, I would say, given the landscape and some of the coaches that weren't interested in the job, I think the Saints have to be happy that Moore, again, we don't know for sure that he doesn't have the job yet, but we have to be happy. If I'm the Saints, I'm happy that this is a guy that does have a bright future and has done some things and is interested in the job. So it's a good day to be a Saints fan from that standpoint.
Yeah. Again, a couple things I think about with Kellen Moore specific. He has been a hot name, head coaching name for maybe a couple cycles now.
Mm-hmm.
And because the Saints are a unique job, I almost think about it in a couple of ways where the general idea is you're going to get two chances to be a head coach. Well, if Kellen takes this job, this is almost, you almost scrap this one because of the situation. I think anybody, it doesn't work out. He's two and done. It's almost a reset where, again, if you like Kellen in future cycles, you take that Saint situation, how the cap looked, how the roster looked, how everything looked, you almost just throw that one out the window. You don't hold it against him that he took a shot to, again, worst case scenario, a year, 2 years, you learn on the job, and now you're more prepared. On the flip side, he is a young candidate that it probably has some newer ideas, again, how to get this roster right. So maybe he's thinking, I'm going to get a little bit longer. It's going to be ugly. Maybe that's what Mickey, that's what that front office, the owners understand that, hey, this is going to be a longer one. We're going to hire a younger head coach and give him that actual legitimate 4 to 5 years to build this thing. So Kellen's going to be in it that way. So I don't think it doesn't surprise me that Kellen would be a good candidate for this job because, again, he's not going to have a hard time regardless of how this situation goes. It's positive he's there for a long time. If it's negative, he's not going to have a hard time finding a coordinator's job and, again, be back in the cycle for some of these other jobs. So, again, good for Kellen. And, again, he's done the right thing. Hey, he's really focused on the Super Bowl and trying to get that, bring another one home to Philly. So that's good. Again, you're still a Saints fan. Neil's not going anywhere. Again, if you want the full rundown, we talked to Nick Underhill, who does all things Saints, just a couple weeks ago, and make sure you go check that one out if you really want to dive deep on the Saints and see kind of where they're at. Otherwise, Ben Johnson, again, getting his staff set in Chicago, Aaron Glenn in New York, again, bringing in Darren Mogi from the Broncos. Both of those hires and all the people they're taking with them means that Detroit's having to restock their coaching cupboard. Again, some promotions, bringing some people from the outside in. Also got coordinator changes in Houston, Seattle, the Patriots continuing to put some good pieces in that building. Again, some old pieces, some new pieces. From the hiring cycle, Neil, anything else I am missing that we need to hit on? Big names, movement, or things you were hearing at either All-Star game?
Well, there certainly are notes coming back from especially Frisco and Mobile, but as far as the hiring cycle and those decisions that are made, I think we've covered most of that stuff. I don't really have anything else to add in that regard. Certainly, we're seeing some interesting situations ahead for some of the new GMs, and I think those will be fun to watch as we kind of decide, what direction they're going to go quarterback wise, how they're going to kind of work with the cap, free agencies, all those kind of things. But that's what makes the next month to 2 months fun, right? So we'll be watching all that stuff just like everyone else, I guess.
Yeah. Well, again, we didn't even, and we're not going to hit on Myles Garrett requesting a trade and what that could mean. Again, truly in a no true, maybe top 5 quarterback situation. If you're sitting there, again, what is the value going to be? It's going to be at least that top 5 pick, I'd have to imagine. But again, in a year where you're not real comfortable with a quarterback, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. you've got some real suitors there that could change the top end of this first round. And Myles Garrett, he is the best single defensive player in the NFL. If he's not number one, he's easily in the conversation for top five. He changes a defensive line, teams. Again, everybody was trying to predict what GMs are calling. 31 other teams called the Browns. I promise you, they picked up the phone, if not just to have the conversation with the front office there. Again, we won't even talk about Myles Garrett, but again, I do expect that to change a team at the top of the first round in this year's draft, much less whatever else it's going to take down the road, because again, he's going to go somewhere and he's going to be an impact player. So let's talk a little bit more about All-Star games. We clean up the front offices, clean up some of those hires, 2 premier games. Practice tape was golden. Practice tape was key. Some players really helped themselves out. Again, game tape, I can tell you from my time in Atlanta, I never watched a single snap of game tape. Did I have to cut it up and put it in some POAs? Yeah, probably at some point. I don't ever remember paying any attention to it, despite what some people say out there. Practice is where it's at. One-on-ones specifically are where it's at. Again, that I would say is a general rule. Again, speaking to one scout, it sounds like the Senior Bowl made a few minor interview tweaks that were not real well received by some of the scouts. Again, small sample size, I'll say that, but again, it was one of the comments that came up was a tweak here and there. Highlights, lowlights, changes. I know there were some things that were just with the weather with both these games. Any highlights or lowlights from either of the game, Neil?
Well, as the Shrine Bowl continues to kind of, I don't want to say, try to overlap with the Senior Bowl, I think Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl, is thinking about making some changes. I haven't heard this officially. I haven't spoken to Jim, but the chatter in Mobile was that they're thinking about putting the parade on Monday, whereas it's always been on Friday, kind of kick off the week. Probably have Tuesday maybe as a full interview day with S2 testing, nothing on the field. And then Wednesday is when the real workouts would start, because typically more and more scouts are not even coming in till Tuesday or Wednesday because of the Shrine Bowl and workouts there. And, it's got a significant roster. Eric Gacko's done well there as executive director. They continue to improve and shape things up there. I think that'd be a wise move. It's just such a departure from old heads like yourself and me, especially me, who remember the days back when you got in on Sunday and then the weigh-ins were Monday morning and everybody was in one big room at the same time. And then you went out to a practice field that afternoon, and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and everyone was gone. It was a ghost town on Thursday. And now Thursday may be a pads day now. If things set up that way. Now that's, again, quite a departure from the way it's been in the past, and probably you'd be doing a lot more work on a Thursday than you normally would in an all-star cycle, but maybe that's the best way to do it given the current schedule. I think kudos to Nagy. Again, I haven't gotten this officially from Jim, so I don't know for sure if this is the way they're going, but if it is, I think it's probably the thing that makes the most sense, and just another example of the adaptation that's going on out there. Also, I talked about this at length in the Friday wrap last week, but talk about culture changes. It's just a very different feel at the Senior Bowl now. And a lot of people, especially, again, people like myself that have been going for a long time, it's just different to go into Winsel's and not have to wait for a table, and to go downtown and everything be very different now. I think a lot of teams, maybe most teams, are staying out closer to Hancock Whitney Stadium where practices take place. In the old days, Ladd Peebles is where all the practices were. They were really close to the team hotel. Now it's about a half hour away. So you don't see as much action in downtown Mobile the way you did. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's better that there's not as much traffic and distractions and all those kind of things, but it is very different from how it used to be, and it takes a little getting used to, again, for someone like me who's been going for more than 20 years. So a lot of changes in Mobile. As far as the Shrine Bowl, I think a lot of people were caught off guard that by Shadur Sanders not even weighing in, not even interviewing. That was one of the big selling points, was that he was going to be there, and at least it was inferred, I thought. that he was going to participate or at least do something. Didn't do anything. That's a disappointment. Of course, he didn't meet with the media. The Giants sent their head coach and their GM down. I don't know if they had any prior knowledge that that he wasn't gonna be doing anything. The sense that I got is that nobody knew that he wasn't going to, but it's not a total surprise to me. I mean, he was already training. He's already training in Dallas, so it was just an easy drive over. It's just disappointing that we didn't get to see either one of the top two guys in action. I think it would have been a great opportunity for Sanders to go out and perform and do some things, but not one that he took advantage of. I haven't seen the headlines. I don't know if he's going to perform at the Senior Bowl. I think I'd heard that he was not going to. I don't know about Cam Ward. Of course, it's all about the scripts now, and everyone's got to do stuff at their pro day and all those kind of things. So I guess that's not surprising, but we keep being told no one's going to go to these All-Star games, so they're not going to go out there and perform. And every year, it seems like that's not always the case. And so that's frustrating. And I don't think there was anyone in Mobile that showed up just to interview or just to do that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, it's just disappointing because we want to see players play, obviously. And that's the whole reason that you go down there. One other point to make, I think that there's been this perception that all the quarterbacks in Mobile were bad. And I don't think that's accurate at all. Now, I know that they didn't all have maybe their best workouts or whatever, but, if you look at Jalen Milroe, he's going to shine at the combine. Okay. I mean, he's a athletic freak. I don't think that changes based on how he played in Mobile. He's going to go out. He's got tools that are going to need to be developed, and the right team develops them. He could be something special. You've got Riley Leonard, who basically, I don't know if he even had time to change his clothes before, pretty much since the CFP finals. So not a whole lot of time to take a break there. And I think Jackson Dart didn't do too badly. None of them really stood out, but someone's going to be 3, someone's going to be 4, someone's going to be 5. And I think there's a good chance that those guys were there. Quinn Ewers may be in that conversation as well, but those guys have a good chance to do it. And, quarterbacks are always on the spotlight. I don't want to sit here and sing their praises, but I do want to blunt some of the criticism because it's a tough week. It's not a great chance to go out necessarily and show your wares. The maximum among scouts has always been we can't hurt yourself at an All-Star game. And I know that's great to say. And in theory, that's wonderful. The facts are that, when you see guys and they don't impress you as much as you thought, then it's natural to maybe not have them on quite the pedestal. But at the same time, I don't think these guys did damage to themselves. And I think if there were any negatives, they got plenty of time to rectify that before the draft.
Yeah, again, I think the adage is generally right that you go to an All-Star game, you don't do anything to hurt yourself on the field. Quarterbacks, again, they're a different beast. Everything about quarterbacks is different. There should be a different grading scale. You evaluate them differently. You interview them differently. Quarterbacks have to be different 99 out of 100 times. The rest of the players, you ask the question why. If they moved from guard to center and they didn't look great, okay, he's a guard only. Tackle to guard, left or right. Again, it solidifies a report, but it doesn't necessarily move you up or down. Maybe it adjusts a grade. Oh, he's only a right tackle. He just did not look like he could function at left. Okay, he's a right only. Again, it solidifies the grade there. Again, does that hurt you? Is that, well, again, yeah, you're not a left tackle. Maybe the money's not there, because now we see right tackles getting paid. So you take that all aside. The quarterback, again, that one's just completely different. On the field, you're not going to do much to hurt yourself. Off the field, again, the way you interview, the way you weigh in, the way you go about your business during the week, that scouts are constantly on the lookout for. All the evaluation that is done, again, just walking through a hallway, how you're interacting between interviews, the way you sit down, the way you conduct yourself, that can, again, solidify something you thought or open your eyes to something new, or again, make you fall even more in love with the kid, like it did, back in 2021 with Ben Skoranek, where again, everything said yes, and then you interview the kid, and then it's like you pound the table for him. That is where you really make your hay for players, for scouts, for teams, all during the week. So again, I can't imagine teams are drastically affecting their grades, but again, just really allows you to lock them in a little further as you go through this spring process. As you step back, again, one of the things, you've got 2 premier games competing. East West, backed by the NFL now in just about every way, keeps breaking rules. Again, with Shadir specifically this year, they are bringing in injured players. Jim is outspokenly against that. If you can't perform, you're not coming. Again, that is fine. I have no problem with that. It would be great to have the interview time. But again, as Jim says, there is a lot of time between combine, private workouts with Zoom capability. You can have plenty of time for those interviews. So again, if you don't want to come, if you're not going to come compete, show up, do it, don't even come. Good. I'm just fine with that. But when you talk about two competing games, neither wants to give an inch.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine somebody from the league office is maybe trying to steer the ship a little bit. But again, you've got two relatively independent games, one for sure, East West, maybe a little less independent with some of the direction they're getting from the league, but neither wants to give an inch. But you're in a situation where, from an NFL team standpoint, if it's about an NFL event, you're going to do what 32 teams want. So, as you said, if the game for this Senior Bowl week gets bumped back a little bit to facilitate both, 32 teams are going to be happy about that. 32 teams are going to be able to do more good work at both games and not feel like they're scrambling, taking a red eye across the country, drive, whatever it may be, splitting scouts, splitting staffs to be able to cover what you want to cover on both. Again, at the end of the day, you are viable as long as you have 32 teams with 10 plus people there.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe I'm wrong. Do you think that is going to be the next step? Is again continued feedback, more feedback? What NFL teams want? It's going to, on the surface, it looks like it's going to benefit the East West more than the Senior Bowl, because the Senior Bowl is going to be probably the one adjusting. But is that where it's going to head, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The 32, the NFL wants what it wants, and most often it gets that. And these All-Star games are built to serve them. It's difficult because in the old days, these were more of a showcase for players that fans didn't get to see. Well, we get to see every single game of almost every player we want to now, so it's a lot harder to sell tickets. And I was excited to see that Jim tweeted that I think they were like 500 tickets away from a sellout. Now, Hancock Whitney's a lot smaller than Lad Peebles is. We have to say that. But at the same time, that's good news. I don't know what the gate looked like for the Shrine. My point is, as much as these games are trying to make money, I think at this point they see themselves as kind of a vehicle for the NFL. And if they're smart, they'll continue to do that. And hopefully that leads to sales. But I think that, yeah, you'll see. I think they're going to do whatever they have to keep the league happy. I think that's kind of that endorsement is what helps them make money and do all those kind of things. And ultimately, money is what makes the world go around. So I think they'll continue to do whatever they have to keep everyone happy. I know that's true of the other three majors, and I don't see that ending anytime soon. I hope that they can coexist. From kind of as an outsider, I'm a big fan of both games. I'm a big fan of all five, and I want them all to win. But there's human nature factored in there, and it is, after all, a game, and there's competitors. And if you don't want to compete, then why are you even involved with any of this stuff? So, I guess we'll all try to make the best of it, but there's still going to be some feelings hurt and some winners and losers, and that's just a fact of life when it comes to football.
Yep, absolutely. Winners and losers, always going to be winners and losers. Everybody's going to do everything they can to stay on the winning side. Again, the commissioner of the NFL, for some of his ridiculous double down on DEI policies, he's still going to make the NFL a ton of money, and he and his people will continue to direct these games to, one, serve the fan base, but also do what they can to serve the franchises that are sending a bunch of people there for not just these two big ones, but again, as we talked about with Jose, again, they will do what they can to make sure everybody's happy at the end of the day. And again, it's going to mean tweaks. It's going to be changes for us older heads, older heads. Again, it's going to mean changes. We have learned to deal with it in the college landscape. We're learning to deal with it in the NFL landscape in different ways. Change is inevitable. There's going to be adjustments. Everybody just, keep your head down, keep grinding. And that's what it's, the way it's going to be. So All-Star games What is next? For many teams, scouts left Mobile on Thursday after practice, maybe Friday, got a nice weekend at home. Back in the buildings, their buildings on Monday this week. February draft meetings kicking off with the combine ready to go at the end of this month. It's time for scouting staff to get back together, work on the board, get that board put together for the draft some more, whether it's a focus on underclassmen who have now declared, getting character cleaned up, stacking those players, adding those players to lists. Maybe they're focusing on players that are going to be at the combine. Maybe it's front board, draft player work, backboard. Again, hit on those day 3 guys, start filtering through some of those lists. Maybe they're going through priority positions. February meetings can be go from a couple of days, 3 to 4 days. Maybe you're hitting a full 2 weeks. Character, background, one-liners, group film work. And you talk about all these teams that have new head coaches, new coordinators, new scheme. That's probably the time where you're going to be completely resetting draft boards, resetting priority positions. Again, I went through that in 2021. We go from Thomas Dimitroff, Dan Quinn to Terry Fontenot, Arthur Smith. Every player from a character standpoint was back on the board. We did not, again, in almost any situation, drop a player for character reasons that we used to kick off the board fairly early with Thomas. You also think about scheme changes. Every player you have to reevaluate. We also had a grade scale change, which meant that a player that had X grade, it's not a nice, easy, seamless transition over to this new grade scale. So a lot of work being done. Every player back on the board, a massive amount of change. Essential to have good leaders step up and guide the ship. Kyle Smith, now assistant GM for the Falcons. He was that guy back in 21 for the Falcons, still doing his thing down there. I'm sure he is still guiding the process with the new defensive coordinator, old guy, Jeff Ulbrich, old Falcon, another year with Raheem there. But with everything getting set for the next wave of the cycle, you have February meetings, combines, pro days, everything you're going to be doing, utilizing your college staff, your maybe in-house staff, maybe your pro staff. You're getting everybody on board for those pro days. There is a lot to do in February. Again, scouts are going to try to breathe a little bit, try to do some, again, 26 work. You got your NFS and Blesto people starting out there to do their work. A lot going on in February. Neil, what else did I miss that, teams are going to be focused on prior to the combine?
Well, I think you missed the pro side. And you have extensive experience on both sides, Rodrik. Did you find that you were more busier when you were more pro focused during this month, kind of getting all the last things ready for that period, or was it the college side? I mean, and I know even when you're on the pro side, you may have some college duties as well, in addition to getting ready for free agency. I mean, I'm interested to get your insights here.
Yeah, again, the pro side gets forgotten about a lot because, again, those guys are oftentimes in windowless rooms watching film from August to December, January, advanced scouts, free agency, obviously the big focus here. By the time we hit February in Atlanta, your free agent reports are likely done. You're probably doing some cleanup. You're doing some low back end players. Maybe you're still gleaning through some street players that, hey, is this guy worth a futures contract? Maybe you're probably going back through old roster. Who is going to be a cap casualty? Again, based on money. Hey, they haven't been on a list yet. Or again, maybe you're starting to, tinker with, hey, Myles Garrett all of a sudden getting traded. We better make sure we have an up-to-date report on him. Yeah, he's an 8.090. He's a Hall of Fame player. That's an easy one. But again, who else? When we start packaging deals, again, we're not the NBA with Luka and Anthony Davis, but who else is going to be a potential trade player where this is that time in February where you're really going back through. You're probably going to do some draft meetings if that's a big part of what your franchise does. Again, Green Bay, it's probably pretty quiet up there during their pro meetings because, again, that's not their philosophy. In Atlanta, under Thomas, when I was a pro scout, he was running that almost from his office where we had very few meetings. I would say the 1 year I was a part of meetings, not to throw shade at Thomas, but the pro scouts' opinions didn't matter. We sat down, we talked about the players, and again, at the end of the day, it was handed off to other people higher than myself as a pro scout. And again, that is the way. Again, a veteran GM like Thomas, that's the way he did things. But yes, you're going to have some pro free agency meetings, again, really setting the board, who are you targeting, what are the numbers going to be, probably bringing that salary cap element in, because again, from the free agency standpoint, that is a huge part of the discussion. You can love players, they may just be too expensive for you. And again, you're also probably going to be thinking about, hey, who from our roster? You've done your end of season reports. At this point, all your end of season evaluations, what do we need to do with our own roster? From, again, hey, we've got to move on from this player. What does the cap number look like? Hey, is this an extension player? What can we do with our roster to make sure it's right? And again, through this process, that pro free agency, yeah, it doesn't slow down, but is certainly quieter and typically more stable, just because you have such a longer runway with these players through the fall and spring to get everything set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. And then, of course, for us here at Inside the League, it's a busy time because we're getting ready for 2 major events as well as a new project that we're working on to kind of help bigger firms identify some of the rising young agents who are talented and on their way up and maybe worthy of a look if they decide to hire. So everyone's busy this time of year. That's what makes it fun. That's what makes it crazy. And Indianapolis is going to be a great time as always. I'm looking forward to it. I'm happy that they're having the in-person NFLPA meeting, which, again, for an old head like me, it's kind of neat to see a kind of a look back to the old ways is something that's still viable. So it's going to be a great time in Indianapolis. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I should bring not just my wife, but my kids this year. We thought this might be the last year of Indianapolis having the combines. I just kind of want to let them see the old way.
Yeah, it'll be here. There's going to be plenty of headlines between now and then, but for teams hunkering down a little bit, getting through their film, getting through their draft stuff, again, is going to be huge. And again, maybe on that pro side, you start hearing some rumors. So football's not slowing down. It is a year-round thing. Hey, and we haven't even talked about spring league, UFL, CFL, all the other leagues that are kicking off. Football is healthy. Football is good, which is good for us because it's our business, and Scouting the League is always going to be here to bring you. Well, whether you are a pro or college scout, scouting is not slowing down here in February. And if you are listening, keep on listening. We're going to keep bringing you the insight you need to know from the landscape of everything in the football world, from scouting to coaching to agents. Scouting the League is here for you. And if you're an agent, Agent Live 360 is here for you. Agents, before we go, make sure you go check out Agent Live 360. It is at agentlive360.com for everything you need for your agency, from players to coaches, managing profiles, tracking invoices, sending invoices, getting paid, keeping up on every element of your entire agency. Notification emails, file folder storage, ROI, transactions, invoices, calendar, contracts, teams, reps, everything all in one spot for you. That is Agent Live 360. Hop on, request a demo. Yours truly will hop on, walk you through it. I can promise you we will talk some football as well. Sign up now with code TRIAL90 for a 90-day, 3-month trial at just $10 a month for Agent Live 360. That's at agentlive360.com. Go check it out now. So, which team has gotten it right? New head coaches, new GMs, new coordinators. Let us know on X. Tag us and the team and let us know why. Make you think just a little bit more than just a team name. At Inside the League, at Right Step ADV. Let us know. But first, do your research. And when you do, you will keep scouting.